long. Hey, hey, hey. It's about that time.
We know what we want to do. It's another opportunity for us to get better.
Alabama has won the match.
How you compete. That means how hard you play, how tough you play, how you can sustain in tough circumstances.
Welcome to TideTV This Week, brought to you by Renaissance Bank. I'm Christopher England alongside Maggie Hetzel.
First true road game, a hostile environment of that, and first SEC road win, so I'd say it was a pretty good week for us.
It was a pretty good week. The Crimson Tide football team opened their SEC schedule on the road in Columbia this past weekend against the 2-1 South Carolina Gamecocks. It was just the 16th matchup all time between the two schools.
On the road and again a hostile environment for the first time this season, Alabama responded with a score. On their very first drive of the game, Tua Tagovailoa found Najee Harris for the 24-yard touchdown, 7-0. Crimson Tide up. South Carolina, they did respond with a field goal from 44 yards out to make it a 7-3 ball game.
A few minutes later, the Crimson Tide got on the scoreboard again. It was 75 yards for the score last week for Henry Ruggs. He said, I can do better than that. Tua connected with Ruggs for the 81-yard touchdown this week. The Tide back on top, 14-3. South Carolina responded. A 31-yard touchdown pass from Ryan Helinski to Shi Smith made it a 4-point game once again at 14-10. Will Reichert tacked on a 23-yard field goal to start the second quarter to push Bama's lead back to 7 at 17-10.
He's been really impressive this season. Alabama added one more touchdown before the half ended. Once again, Tua connected with Najee Harris. Najee shrugged off a Gamecock defender right here. Here it is. Shrug him off. And then I thought he may look like he'd be tackled, but not so fast. Najee with the hurdle keeps his balance and takes it in for the score. The Tide up, and I mean celebrating right there, Najee with it.
South Carolina tried to make it a one-possession game at the half. The Gamecocks had four tries from within the 4-yard line, but the Crimson Tide defense stood tall, keeping South Carolina out of the end zone as the Tide held on to lead 24-10 at the half. South Carolina opened the third quarter with a field goal to make it 24-13, but the Tide responded. Tua connected with Devontae Smith, this time for the score 42 yards later. The score is 31-13 as the Tide began to pull away. After a few field goals, Mac Jones punched it in from the 1-yard line to make it 47-16 Bama as the Crimson Tide rolled to the 47-23 win on the road in their SEC opener.
Our goal to come in here and play a complete game for 60 minutes, and I thought we did that offensively. I thought we ran out of gas a little bit on defense, but we played 86 plays of defense, which is a lot, especially in conditions like this. And but I think we still need to do work to play to the standard that we would like to play to, and maybe that we're capable of playing to. So we're going to continue to work with our players and show them the things that they did well, and try to fix the things that we didn't do as well.
Alabama totaled 571 yards of offense, including 495 yards passing. Tua Tagovailoa had a career-high 444 yards passing with 5 touchdowns. Devontae Smith led all Alabama receivers with 8 receptions for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. Henry Ruggs, he added 6 catches for 122 yards with an 81-yard touchdown. It was just the 9th time in school history that 2 Alabama receivers have gone over 100 yards in the same game. And running back Najee Harris, he totaled 123 yards, including 5 receptions for 87 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns.
Defensive back Xavier McKinney led the Crimson Tide on defense. McKinney had a team-high 9 total tackles with 5 solo stops. McKinney also added a tackle for loss and had the Crimson Tide's only interception. Linebacker Anthony Jennings had 6 tackles, 2 for loss, and a sack. Jennings also added a forced fumble. The win was the 25th consecutive win for the Crimson Tide against teams from the SEC Eastern Division. It was also Coach Saban's 17th consecutive victory over his former assistants, including 3 of those against South Carolina head coach Will Muschamp.
A couple of Crimson Tide players were honored by the Southeastern Conference for their performance against the Gamecocks. Redshirt junior Landon Dickerson was named the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week. Dickerson played 58 snaps at guard and did not allow a quarterback hurry, pressure, or sack against South Carolina. Dickerson was good on all assignments and helped the Crimson Tide roll up 576 total offensive yards against the Gamecocks.
Tua Tagovailoa earned Offensive Player of the Week honors from the Southeastern Conference. Tua completed 28 of 36 passes for a career-high 444 yards and 5 touchdowns as he registered a passing efficiency rating of 227.21 with no interceptions. Tua became the first quarterback in school history to throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in a game. Tua was also named the Davey O'Brien National Quarterback of the Week. Now, taking a look at this week's rankings, there wasn't a lot of movement near the top. The top 9 remained the same in the Associated Press poll this week, with the Crimson Tide still at number 2, receiving 5 first-place votes. 3 of the top 4 are from the SEC, with Georgia and LSU behind the Tide. 5 of the top 9 are from the SEC as well, with Auburn and Florida at 8 and 9. Texas A&M is the other SEC team in this week's rankings. The Aggies are at 17.
In the coaches poll, the top 10 is the same this week. Alabama is second with 3 first-place votes. Other SEC teams included in the top 10 are Georgia at 3, LSU at 5, Florida and Auburn at 8 and 9. Texas A&M is the lone other SEC school in the top 25. The Aggies will come in at 15th in the coaches poll.
And Maggie, we have a kickoff for next week's matchup with Ole Miss.
It's going to be another hot one. Alabama and Ole Miss will kick off at 2:30 p.m. The game will be broadcast nationally on CBS.
Now you want to stay with us because coming up next, we're going to give you an all-access look inside the Crimson Tide's SEC opener against South Carolina.
TideTV this week is brought to you by ATI. Built by Bama. Rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy. Ford and the F-150. Tough runs in our family. See your local Ford dealer today. AFS, a Bayless company. Your foundation and waterproofing specialists. Serving you since 2000.
It does not worry itself with what stands in its path. It is not complacent during its high times, and it does not dwell on its low times.
Now you owe it to yourself and your teammates.
The Tide cares only for its own persistence, for its resiliency to roll again and again, faster and stronger than the time before. The Tide always returns.
First SEC game of the season for the Tide, and in true Alabama fashion, they doubled up the Gamecocks, 47-23 behind 571 total offensive yards. With that win, you could say the Tide had an enjoyable flight back to T-Town, but only celebrated that win for 24 hours. Let's take an all-access look at Alabama's win over South Carolina. It's brought to you by ATI.
Welcome into Williams-Brice Stadium here in Columbia, South Carolina. A hard sellout today, 80,000.
A sticky day in the South in mid-September, as you would only imagine. 86 degrees right now. This is only the 16th meeting between these two teams. Carolina's won 3 of the last 5, 2 of the last 3 here on their home turf. Tagovailoa sets, fires, far side, wide open. Touchdown, Najee Harris.
Boy, oh boy, did he put a fake on the world there. Najee Harris wide open at the 5, and he takes it in for the touchdown.
Big play. Alinsky pressured from behind. He threw it away just as he was going down. Tagovailoa going down again. In trouble, and he's going down. DJ Dale, the freshman nose tackle, with the sack. You can forget it. Fastest guy on the Alabama team.
Touchdown, Alabama!
And look who's in front of it. Jerry Jeudy gets the last block.
He'll throw into the end zone. Caught. Touchdown against double coverage.
South Carolina answered both touchdowns with points.
Yep. The punting team came over by Nick Saban, and he said,
Looks like Bama's going to go for it.
4th down and 3.
Looks left. Everybody's covered. Throws. Najee. First down.
Inside the 30. Broke a tackle. A hurdle.
Hurdles over a man at the 15. And he will take it in for a touchdown. Oh, my goodness. One of the plays of the year.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Go! He just come off it, man.
And Alabama trying to get him, and they do! He gets hit as he crosses the 10, introduced him to the turf. Devontae makes the grab, avoids a defender. Touchdown, Alabama.
You got that?
Bama up comfortably. Helinski loses the ball as he is hit from behind. It's covered by DJ Dale.
Another, and look at him go.
Throws across Devontae Smith.
That's number 5 through the air for Tua Tagovailoa.
Launches one towards the end zone. Intercepted Alabama. Xavier McKinney.
Matt Jones trying to do it himself. Oh, second effort, he's in. Touchdown.
Alabama's going to win this one by a final of 47-23. The Tide will go to 3-0 on the year.
Tide TV this week is brought to you by ATI. Built by Bama. Rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Brought it down. Blocked by Carter. Got it.
Alabama utilizing this great energy we're hearing in the gym.
She brings it down. Powerful touch, McSparrett. Ends in an ace. Thomas finishes the job.
This is your new volleyball coach, Lindsay Devine. Visit RollTide.com and purchase your season tickets today.
Welcome back. After their SEC opener on the road last week, the second-ranked Crimson Tide returned home to Bryant-Denny this weekend to take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Although Alabama leads the all-time series 36-5, there have been some very memorable moments from both the Crimson Tide and the Golden Eagles. Despite Alabama outgaining Southern Miss 442 yards to just 195, the Golden Eagles took advantage of 3 Crimson Tide interceptions and a fumble to upset Alabama in Gene Stallings' coaching debut in 1990. Future NFL Hall of Famer Brett Favre completed 9 of 17 passes for 125 yards for the Golden Eagles, but it took a 52-yard field goal with 3:35 left to give Southern Miss the 27-24 win. And one of the most famous plays in Crimson Tide history also happened against Southern Miss. On 4th and 13 at the Southern Miss 43, with the Tide trailing 21-10 with just 29 seconds remaining in the first half, Brody Crowell throws it downfield, and Tyrone Prothro made one of the greatest catches in college football history. Prothro wrapped his arms around the defender and pinned the ball against the DB's back, flipped over, and somehow managed to hang on to the ball long enough for the catch, a 42-yard pickup on 4th down. That play swung the momentum in the Crimson Tide's favor as Alabama rallied to win 31-20. Jay Hopson is in his 3rd season as head coach of Southern Miss. Hopson has led the Golden Eagles to winning seasons in each of his first 3 years. This season, the Golden Eagles entered the contest 2-1. Southern Miss defeated Alcorn State 38-10 in Hattiesburg to open the season, but Southern Miss had a much tougher matchup in Week 2 against Mississippi State. The Bulldogs handily defeated the Golden Eagles 38-15, but they got back into the win column in Week 3. It was a shootout, but Southern Miss prevailed as they defeated Troy on the road 47-42. The Southern Miss offense comes into the contest averaging 33 points and 453 total yards per game. Leading the Golden Eagles offense is Jack Abraham. The junior quarterback leads Conference USA and is 7th in the nation, just behind Tua, with 330 passing yards per game to go along with 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Abraham's favorite target is the Conference USA leader in receiving. Jalen Adams has 18 receptions for 257 yards and a touchdown through 3 games, but he is just as lethal on special teams. Southern Miss leads Conference USA in both kickoff and punt returns, and that's because of the Golden Eagles' leading receiver. In the season opener against Alcorn State, Adams returned both a kick and punt for touchdowns. And last week against Troy, he added another kickoff return for touchdown, this one for 100 yards. Adams leads the nation with 47.4 yards per kick return and leads Conference USA with 199 all-purpose yards per game. But don't overlook wideout Quez Watkins. The Athens, Alabama native missed the first 2 games of the season, but had a big debut last week against Troy. Watkins finished with 7 receptions for 209 yards with 2 touchdowns. Defensive back DQ Thomas leads a Southern Miss defense that averages giving up 30 points and 381 yards per game. Thomas is the team leader in tackles with 24, tackles for loss with 4. He's tied for the team lead with 2 sacks and has the Golden Eagles' only interception of the year. The second-ranked Crimson Tide will be seeking to extend its consecutive win streak against unranked opponents to 86 when Alabama takes on Southern Miss on Saturday in Bryant-Denny. Kickoff is scheduled for 11 o'clock. The game will be televised on ESPN2. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV This Week coming up next.
It does not worry itself with what stands in its path. It is not complacent during its high times, and it does not dwell on its low times.
Now you owe it to yourself and your teammates.
The Tide cares only for its own persistence, for its resiliency to roll again and again, faster and stronger than the time before. The Tide always returns.
Welcome back. The 21st ranked Alabama men's golf team was in action in Birmingham on Tuesday.
The Tide took on Army in the 5th annual Busch Cup hosted at Shoal Creek.
The Crimson Tide claimed wins in 3 of the 4 groups during the morning's alternate shot round to take a 3-1 lead. In the afternoon match play, the Tide won 5 of the 9 head-to-head contests to secure the victory. The 21st ranked Crimson Tide defeated Army 8-5 for the 5th annual Busch Cup win.
The 24th ranked women's golf team finished 8th at the Anika Intercollegiate on Wednesday. As a team, Alabama entered the day in 10th place and was able to move up the leaderboard, finishing 8th overall, passing defending NCAA champion Duke and 6th ranked UCLA. Senior Kenzie Wright totaled a team leading 13 birdies, finishing 8th overall with 2 under par, 214.
The Alabama soccer team wrapped up non-conference play with a couple of big wins this past week. The Tide shut out Jacksonville State 3-0 in Jacksonville last Thursday. And then at home this past Sunday, the Tide defeated North Texas 3-1. The wins improved the Crimson Tide's record to 5-2 and 1 on the year as they begin SEC play this Sunday against Arkansas.
The Alabama volleyball team picked up 3 wins this past week in the Blazer Invite, sweeping UAB, Georgia State, and Alcorn State, all by scores of 3-0. But the Tide's home debut on Thursday, Bama dropped a hard-fought match to Kennesaw State 3-1. The 3-1 record on the week improves the Tide's overall record to 8-2 on the year. And the Alabama swimming and diving team picked up a win in new head coach Coley Stickles' debut.
Alabama's women beat Delta State 204-91, while the Tide men downed the Statesmen 186-109. Overall, the Tide won 27 of 32 events, including all 4 relays.
Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV This Week coming up next.
Brought it down. Blocked by Carter. Got it.
Alabama utilizing this great energy we're hearing in the gym.
She brings it down. Powerful touch, McSparrett. Ends in an ace. Thomas finishes the job.
This is your new volleyball coach, Lindsey Devine. Visit RollTide.com and purchase your season tickets today.
Crossing route, Najee Harris inside the 30, broke a tackle, a hurdle, and the sideline, touchdown! What a catch and run! Throw complete behind Devontae Smith. He still made the catch, and he is gone. Touchdown, Alabama.
The box, Crimson Tide. Shot on goal, and the Crimson Tide with the early advantage. To the center, headed in. Alabama 2, North Texas nothing.
Those are our BBVA top plays of the week. Now let's take a look at our players of the week, brought to you by Payless Drugs. Tua Tagovailoa led the Crimson Tide to a 47-23 win over South Carolina. Tua completed 28 of 36 for a career-high 444 yards and 5 touchdowns. Tua became the first quarterback in Alabama history to throw for 400-plus yards and 5 touchdowns in the same game. Tua's 444 yards ranks third all-time in a single game in school history.
And we go with the Tide's leader on the defense this week, Xavier McKinney. McKinney led the Crimson Tide with a team-high total 9 tackles, including 5 of those being solo. McKinney also had a tackle for loss and had an interception in the end zone to end a Gamecock scoring threat.
Now let's take a look at next week's schedule for the Crimson Tide. What's next is brought to you by Renaissance Bank.
On Monday, men's tennis wraps up play at the Milwaukee Tennis Classic in Wisconsin. And on Tuesday, the Crimson Tide volleyball team travels to College Station to take on Texas A&M. Match time is set for 8 p.m. and will be carried live on ESPNU.
The Alabama soccer team will be at home on Thursday to host South Carolina at 7. On Friday, women's tennis begins action in the Rice Invitational in Houston, with women's golf taking part in the Schooner Fall Classic in Norman, Oklahoma.
Football returns home to take on Ole Miss on Saturday at 2:30. That game will be broadcast by CBS.
And soccer and volleyball wraps up the weekend on Sunday. Soccer will take on Tennessee at noon in Knoxville, while volleyball will be at home in Foster Auditorium to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Tide TV this week.
Have a great week, everybody. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.